Good afternoon. My name is Nate Serota, Nateserota. I'm with the Honolulu Department of Parks and Recreation. Thank you for joining us here at Ke'ehi Lagoon Park on this very sunny and windy day. Grateful that we have better weather today than we did the past couple days. The announcement that we're making today is about our conversion effort. We're going to be taking a lot of what we call underutilized outdoor courts and converting them to dedicated pickleball courts. So pickleball, if you folks aren't familiar, is kind of like a hybrid between tennis and ping pong. It's the fastest growing sport in the nation, and we've been trying to keep up with demand by lining our courts with some of the pickleball lines, making our existing courts multi-use courts. But the sport is growing in such an exponential rate that we realized that we need to make more dedicated courts. So today we're going to be announcing that there is about 17 parks with about 20 courts that are going to be reutilized to make about 67 new dedicated courts. First and foremost, I'd like to introduce all the speakers that we have today. We have Mayor, Director Laura Thielen, and Councilmember Radian Cordero, whose district this is. We'll be going in that order, starting with the 15th Mayor of the City and County of Honolulu, Mayor Rick Blangiardi.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Well, look, this is a joyous experience for us. Anytime that we can talk about the fact that we're doing something here that accommodates people. And I can tell you that if I get asked anything, I get asked, what we're going to do about the need for pickleball courts. And I would tell you, I love being asked that question because I love the fact that so many people in our community are enjoying this game, from young people all the way through people my age and older. I think that's a wonderful thing. But what we're doing is not just about pickleball. We want to take advantage of courts that have been underutilized, and we'll let Laura Thielen talk about that. But this is also trying to accommodate, our volleyball courts, our tennis courts. How do we get maximum usage from these facilities to make sure we get as many people being able to take advantage? So that's what this is about. It's kind of more in a balance of our resources on what we can do creatively to satisfy this incredible growing need, which I'll say again, I love. In fact, I'm almost afraid that if I say we're doing 65 courts, somebody out there is going to say, that's all, because the demand has been so great. And I can appreciate that. And we'll continue to look at this and evolve with our community. And the very fact that this is really a chance for people to have fun and enjoy themselves and build on friendships and family life together, it's a wonderful thing. So I thank you for being here today. But the person you want to hear from is our Director of Parks and Recreation, Laura Thielen. She has been the driving force in making this happen, and I could not be any more proud of anyone in our cabinet than I am of Laura Thielen. She has a passion for our parks. She has a passion for this project, so I'm going to turn it over to her. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here today. When I started as the Parks Director, one of the many complaints I received is that there's a number of people offering commercial lessons on courts. There weren't enough courts for recreational players. There were complaints from tennis players with the courts being overrun. There were complaints from people that play pickleball that they didn't have enough courts. And so as a department, we tried to tackle this issue. And today we're announcing what I'm going to call the grand compromise, so that we can try to maximize the use of our outdoor courts and reduce the conflicts between the different users. So right now we have about 173 courts that are utilized for pickleball. Most of these are multi-use courts. They're shadow lined to serve multiple uses. Only 17 of these courts are dedicated for pickleball, which means pickleball players have to bring their own nets and to these other courts. What we've done is we've identified underutilized courts across the island so we can create more dedicated pickleball courts. We're going to go from 17 dedicated courts to 77 dedicated pickleball courts, all of which will have their own nets. So players will be able to arrive and play. We're also going to be starting a new pickleball complex. And what you see behind me are former tennis courts. These have not been in tennis play for at least several years because this was an area utilized by one of the contractors for Hart. Now that the contractor is vacating the site, they will be reconstructing the parking lot, and we'll be repainting these courts behind me to be 8 tournament-level pickleball dedicated courts. We're going to follow the reconstruction of the parking lot to add in 5 courts, we hope, over here in the shade of Hart. which will not be tournament level, but it'll give some more play to this area. And then we're putting in a budget proposal this year because one thing that tennis and pickleball players agree on is that we need more outdoor courts. So we'll be working with our Department of Design and Construction over the next year to come up with a new way to contract and build additional outdoor courts. And ultimately, we would like to create this into a pickleball complex facility. Part of the compromise is the Central Oahu Regional Park. The 20+ tennis courts there will remain tennis-only courts. Tennis players do have some tournaments that they cannot play on shadow line courts, and they've asked us to keep that facility dedicated exclusively for tennis. And so we will be doing that. And we're also going to be bringing forward rules that will better manage the use of our courts. We can corral the commercial instruction to areas that can support it and leave the bulk of the courts open for free recreational play, which is what our primary purpose is of our parks. We're also going to be working with our volleyball and basketball players because those outdoor courts are utilized. We want to protect them from damage. We don't want people skateboarding on them and the like, so that we can keep them in use. And so we look forward to working with all of the players and increasing the activation of our parks, because active parks are safe parks. So before I blow away, I do want to invite the councilwoman up here. She has been Councilwoman Radiant Cordero has been a real champion of activating parks. We've worked with her on developing dog parks, community gardens, and now pickleball courts is one of our magic weapons of being able to keep places active and safe and communities healthy. So Councilwoman Cordero.
Aloha and welcome to Kahawiki Ahupua'a, but also we are here on the island of Oahu, the Gathering Isle. Of course, parks are known as places where many of our families, people all gather. So as Director Thielen mentioned, as well as Mayor, parks are places to gather, to have fun, to come together, to do things like pickleball. Something that at the City Council that many of our constituents come to us about regarding some of the need for more pickleball courts. Here above me is the rest of my district in between Aiea to Kapalama, and many of them have to go through to many other communities in search of pickleball places and courts to play. And so we are very welcoming of our district's very first complex here when we do get it started. And so we do hope that we can see the events happening, tournaments happening. So when that does start up, we hope to welcome everyone. And I'm sure myself, as well as Mayor Blangiardi and our DPR director and team will be able to come here. And we also want to thank everyone who is a part of the pickleball communities, but not just pickleball, but also tennis, volleyball, basketball communities who bring up concerns and issues about the need for dedicated courts for pickleball and other sports, because without their bringing their conversations with the city, these things will not happen. So let's continue that conversation, and we hope to be able to welcome you all here once we start the tournaments and the courts open up. Thank you, everyone.
I'm John Beltry. I'm the president of Friends of Diamond Head Tennis Center. Back in 2009, we set up a nonprofit specifically to raise money to give to the city to resurface the tennis courts at Diamond Head. In 2010, we gave the city $60,000 towards the resurfacing of the tennis courts. And in 2014, every time we get a new parks director, I invite him down to Diamond Head. I explain what we've done with the city in the past and what can we do in the future with the city. And at that time on my list, I had, this was back in 2014, I had pickleball. And when the director asked John, what do you know about pickleball? I said, I don't know anything other than the fact it's the fastest growing sport. Because there at Diamond Head, we get a lot of tourists and so forth. And so they want to know where they could play pickleball. So at Diamond Head, we have the 10 tennis courts, but we also had a paddle tennis court, which is almost the same size as a pickleball court, and it needed to be resurfaced. So I had the city went ahead and made the first city pickleball court there at Diamond Head. And it took about a couple of years, by 2016 or so, for pickleball to start to pick up here. So by 2016, 2017, the growth just started enormously. And then we added a couple of pickleball courts on court 8, tennis courts on court 9. So we have 5 down at Diamond Head. And right now today, in the mornings, we have open play. There's anywhere from 50, 60, 70 people waiting in line to play pickleball. So yes, it's growing rapidly. It's increasing. Oh, this is fantastic. I want to say, first of all, I want to thank the mayor and our director, Laura, for doing this. This is something that's been long overdue, and it's great to see that they're taking action because the demand is so great in all the communities, and it will relieve some of the more popular places like Diamond Head, I hope, and it's spread out more geographically for other people to have more easier access. It's really important if we get dedicated courts wherever we can. And by dedicated courts is where the net is already in place, just like the tennis courts. Because right now, in most of the places, you got to bring your own net, and you got to drag it along with you, and sometimes that's a real inconvenience. So what they're doing right now is fantastic. It's only going to help the increase in the sport. And you ought to try it. If you haven't tried it, try it. It's a lot of fun, it's social, and people are laughing and giggling and having a good time. So join us.